Now, you might have heard overnight Israel's military confirmed that its jets carried out an attack on the Jabalia refugee camp in North Gaza last night, killing, it said, more than 50 Palestinians. The IDF said the strike targeted a large number of terrorists, including Hamas commander, although Hamas have just told us, breaking news, that 7 civilian hostages were also killed, including 3 foreign passport holders. More on that to come.
Meanwhile, there is hope for foreign nationals trying to leave Gaza after it was announced earlier this morning that up to 500 of them will be allowed to pass the southern border into Egypt today. Well, joining us now is Dr Nick Maynard, who's been regularly visiting Gaza for 15 years. Thank you for joining us this morning. In your experience of the area, how difficult are things there right now in comparison to the previous crises?
Thank you very much for asking me on again. They're appalling. This is the worst humanitarian crisis that affected Gaza for decades. I've been going out for 15 years. I've witnessed previous campaigns of bombarding Gaza. I've been out in the aftermath of the 2014 huge war, and this is the worst I've ever seen. It's the worst that any of my friends and colleagues in Gaza have ever seen.
Nick, really appreciate you being on. It's such a difficult one for all of us to just try and get right. The humanitarian disaster that is unfolding is obviously appalling. You've heard there in the news, 7 hostages were killed in the latest strikes. But I guess you would agree, and I'm not asking you to give too much away. I guess you would also, from a medical point of view, accept that the heinous crimes carried out 3.5 weeks ago on human beings were genocidal at the very least, were they not, my friend? What do you see as the answer to a situation that really shows no sign of abating?
Yeah, listen, I'm appalled by all loss of civilian life, wherever it is. I think it's disappointing that people keep asking us to condemn what happened 3 weeks ago. Of course we do. But what is going on at the moment is continuing indiscriminate killings of Gazan civilians. So we abhor all loss of civilian life, but it's ongoing in Gaza. Yeah. There are over 3,000 children who've been killed. There's another 2,000 children who are missing, presumed buried under the rubble. So that may amount to 5,000 children deaths. This is more children killed in any conflict than any year in recent decades around the world. So it is a humanitarian catastrophe of unprecedented proportions.
And Nick, you say you've visited Gaza regularly to work there. Do you currently have friends and family who are there at the moment? Obviously, I understand that the communications were cut off at the weekend. It might be difficult to get a full picture of what is happening. But what is the situation there as you understand it at present?
It's terrible. So, yes, communications have been lost again this morning. They were cut off for about 30 hours after the weekend. Then on Sunday and yesterday, we regained contact with many of our friends. We've lost it again this morning. I've not been able to contact anyone this morning, but yesterday they were describing a complete horror out there. They quoted to me, they felt they've been deserted by the rest of the world, that they do not expect to survive themselves, but they will continue to work in their hospitals, despite the fact the hospitals are being bombed now.
Nick, you're a surgeon. A lot of people on the show today in the past few days have actually defended Israel's right to bomb hospitals on the basis that Hamas have been using patients in those hospitals as human shields. As a man of your profession, what is your response to that?
Well, I'm appalled by that. And let me say, I've been going out for 15 years. I've spoken to many people there. Many other colleagues have visited there, even more often than I have. And I do not accept the premise that the hospitals are being used to, that the Hamas are using them, or the patients there are being used as shields. I've visited Shifa Hospital on many occasions. Other friends have. I speak to people who've lived in those hospitals for years, and they do not accept that premise. They do not accept they are being used Hamas and civilians being used as human shields. And even if it were the case, the fact that the hospitals where there are in Shifa Hospital, there are tens of thousands of people at the moment, far exceeding the numbers of beds. The notion that that is a justifiable area to bomb is an appalling concept for
Nick,
me.
of course, you know, again, just factually in terms of what we're told, yes, we are told that Hamas have tunnels underneath those hospitals. I don't know your response to that, but what I'd like to ask you is this. No doubt, everybody can see what this humanitarian crisis is looking like and unfolding, and it's beyond words and beyond comprehension. What sorts this in your mind? It's all well and good for us all to sit here, and as you quite rightly said, pro-Israelis will say they have a right because of the heinous crimes. Palestinians will say, hold on a minute, this isn't right. We've just talked about that border crossing. I don't really even understand that. What is the answer in your opinion, sir? Is there one?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea whether there are tunnels underneath the hospitals, and of course, none of us do. You say these are facts. I don't think they are facts.
No, I said I don't. No, Nick, I genuinely am telling you that doing this job is so difficult because this is played out in social media and across different news networks, and every story is different. And so we are just throwing everything out there to experts like you. Just very quickly, as a man who's done such good work out there, who's been on here and has quite rightly described the devastation as abhorrent, what is the answer, briefly, my friend, in your mind?
Absolutely. A ceasefire. And again, I'm approaching this from a humanitarian perspective. The only way that adequate aid can get in there is by a ceasefire, not a temporary pause as being suggested by others, a ceasefire to allow the aid to get in there. The health system has collapsed. We talked on previous shows when you interviewed me that the fuel was running out, and there have been many instances when it has run out for hours at a time. In Shifa Hospital, I hear yesterday that it's now run out finally. So all these hospitals are functioning without any fuel to power their services. That means that ventilators cannot keep patients alive. That means that operating theatres cannot work. So the death toll will increase massively unless there's a ceasefire.
Dr Nick Maynard, thank you ever so much for joining us this morning. A fascinating insight there.